Welcome to the second in our bespoke series on expert positioning and innovation for Seika. Hi, my name is Douglas Kruger, professional speaker and author. Let's talk about standing out in your market and finding brand distinction, the difference that can make to your success. Being different by design can make the world of difference to your bottom line. And I've seen this poignantly many times across a range of industries. A few years ago, I was speaking on this topic, and I sat down next to a man who confessed to me that he had been frustrated by this problem that he'd been grappling with for many years. He was the marketing manager of a business school in South Africa, and every year they played for second place to Gibbs. And he said no matter what they did, they couldn't seem to topple the giant. And what frustrated him was that their offerings were identical, same pricing, same courses. In many cases, they were even the more cost-effective alternative. And he said, when you spoke about this idea of expert positioning and distinguishing yourself by design, he said the penny dropped. Our dean, in their case, does everything in his power to avoid the limelight, whereas the Dean of Gibbs is an active thought leader. And there were many other structural things that set the one brand apart from the other. And it's just interesting to see that if your offering is identical to that of your competitor, you still have the option of standing on the roof and waving a colorful flag. And when you choose to do that, when you do something different by design, it sets you apart in an industry. So, what practical options do you have for finding a flag to wave? How do you go about thinking about becoming distinct on purpose? That's what we're looking at today. There are several clever ways of answering that question, and in today's video, we'll focus on just one of them and 3 ways of doing it. The one that we will focus on is building a structurally different business offering. Can you make yourself different by design in terms of how your entire offering, your profession, is structured and offered to the world? So here are 3 ways, practical ways, to begin thinking about how to do that. Number 1, consider importing the best ideas out of other industries. This is a remarkably simple but unbelievably powerful technique. By doing this, you build a business that is structurally different and therefore genuinely unique. True story. There was a hospital in the United States that had an unusually high mortality rate, and a crisis management team got together and determined that they had a bottleneck. The problem was the handover period from the ambulance into the emergency ward was taking too long. It would go up to a 3-minute period, and people were dying in droves in that 3-minute handover period. Now, the most logical way to solve a problem like that is to go and have a look at what other hospitals are doing. They did that, and in doing so, they learnt a few basic lessons. They carved their time down from 3 minutes to just over 2. Better but not great. Then one young maverick had this crazy idea and said, the principle of the problem has been solved somewhere else before. What if we go and observe a Formula 1 event? You've seen this on TV. The car pulls into the pit stop at Mach 4, they change all 4 tires, they give the guy a haircut, they feed him a pizza, and off he goes in under 2 seconds. And by studying how this team was able to technically accomplish that, they got their own handover period down to 7 seconds. Not only industry leading, but life-saving. We tend to focus myopically on what others do in our industry. We have this built-in desire to fit in. What ideas work in unrelated industries? Could you offer, for example, something as outlandish as the drive-through version, the stripped-down version? Sometimes the very best innovations come from someone looking at the problems within an industry and simply saying, that's ridiculous. Surely this principle has been solved somewhere before. Surely there is a better way. If you're willing to look at your core problems that way, you can innovate in ways that change the structure of your business and help you to get ahead. That's the first option. Number 2, ask the question, what are we actually trying to achieve here? Try this thought exercise with me. You are the president of a drought-stricken, water-stressed nation, and your goal is to feed as many people as you can using as little water as you can. What crop would you grow? If I had to ask you that question right now and you had to scratch your head and search for one, what answer would you go for? Well, the reality of the thing is, I have already misled your thinking by asking you a process-driven question rather than zooming back and asking, what are we actually trying to achieve here? The problem with the phrasing there is I asked you, what crop would you choose to plant? Now, this may sound bizarre and counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. You get more food by farming fish than by planting any crop you care to name. And so, if you start with the wrong question, which is, how do we make this process more efficient? You will go round and round in smaller and smaller circles, becoming ever more incrementally efficient at perhaps the wrong thing. If you zoom back and ask the bigger question, what are we actually trying to achieve here? That's where the opportunities for real innovation lie. And it's a case of looking above the landscape and not getting caught up in the process. So, what are we actually trying to achieve here? Option number 3. Ask yourself, what rules are people already trying to break? Now, I'm married to a compliance manager, and I'm the author of a book called They're Your Rules, Break Them. So you can just imagine the balance of conversation. There is a human tendency to try to streamline, and in the book, They're Your Rules, Break Them, I point out that paying attention to this tendency of people to look for shortcuts, to look for ways around rules, is really an attempt to try to get things done more efficiently. Human beings will always look for ways to do things more efficiently. Now, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. Sometimes the law determines that that is not an option. But quite often, scenarios will change and the rules, the ways, the processes, the means by which we've always done things actually become outdated and become a little silly, a little slow, a little tedious. Take the example of a U-turn. In South Africa, you are not allowed to do a U-turn. It is illegal. However, in places like California, it is legal. They've decided that it's necessary and it's useful, and they have structurally enabled it. So they have determined ways in which you can do a safe U-turn, and they have created the infrastructure to allow you to do that. So what they're looking at there is the way humans really behave. And what I'd like to ask you to do is to ask, what are your clients frustrated about? What corners do they try to cut? What are the shortcuts that they are looking for? And are they attempting to show you via their feedback that your process is inefficient? Or that the entire system, the entire way of providing a solution is inefficient? If you don't enable the U-turn, someone else might. They will come along and find that way to innovate, and they become the industry leaders of tomorrow. What if you did it instead? It's a simple case of observing human behavior and asking, what frustrates people? And can we enable the U-turn? If you enable it successfully, you have structurally innovated in ways that make you distinct. So, your invitation for today. Will you make the decision to be different on purpose? Will you make the call in order to stand out by design rather than just to blend in? And it begins with a little courage on your part. Number 2, to innovate at a structural level, could you import ideas from another industry? If you're an ambulance team trying to solve a speed problem, don't look at how other ambulances solve speed problems. Look at Formula One. What's the problem you're trying to solve? What are the issues that your clients are trying to solve? What's the underlying principle, and where has it been solved before? Because someone has solved that issue somewhere before. By simply importing that idea, you have structurally innovated and set yourself apart. Next, instead of starting with process, start by asking the bigger question. What are we actually trying to achieve here? What's the point? And especially, what's the point for our clients? What are they trying to achieve? Our services are always a means to an end. What is their desired end? And by thinking that way, you get away from the question of growing crops, the way things have always been done. You get away from thinking about your processes, and you start to think about what they're really trying to achieve. And you may be able to swing your services, swing your structure in such a way that you do that, just that little more efficiently. Making those changes is innovation. Can you observe and enable the rule breaking, the U-turn? Is the human tendency towards streamlining and trying to be efficient attempting to show you which parts are currently inefficient and where the opportunities for improvement lie? Folks, let those questions bubble about in your subconscious and consider getting out of the office and walking a little as you think about them and let them percolate. You won't have immediate answers, but if you allow your mind to just process them and wonder about them and to daydream for a while, preferably while you are out walking rather than sitting and staring at the place where you normally engage in processes, you might find that the thinking becomes just that little richer, just that little freer, and just that little deeper. Now, in the next video, we will consider a completely different way to be distinct. Today we were talking the structure of your business and how to innovate there. In the next video, we will talk about that scariest of all P words that can set you apart, personality. I will guide you through that one, and I look forward to it.